In SaaS sales, they're not hiring based off of a resume. They're hiring you. In fact, the entire interview is a demo, and how you run that demo determines whether or not you'll land the job. I've interviewed hundreds of reps, and I can tell you exactly what separates the top performers from the rest. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to prepare, present, and close like a top rep so that you have the best chance possible in landing your dream job. Buckle up because I'm about to share the cheat code. Welcome to How to Crush Your SaaS Sales Interview. Think of this as your runbook because the interview is not a typical Q&A. It's actually a full sales cycle and the product is you. In most interviews, you bring in a portfolio, some proof of work that shows your past projects. But in SaaS sales, you are the portfolio. Everything you do from the time that you hit submit on the application, it's being watched and judged. How you research them on LinkedIn, how you show up to the interview, how you follow up with them after the interview. In fact, the entire process is a sales cycle with a beginning, middle, and end. How you research, how you present, how you close and follow up. They're looking for things like, are you professional? Can you carry a conversation? Can you tell intriguing stories? Do you ask secondary and tertiary questions? Are you genuinely curious? These are the things they're looking for because how you treat them in this process is exactly how you're going to treat their prospects and customers. I often get asked, what are managers really looking for? How are hiring managers evaluating you? And most people think it's about the numbers, but it's not just about the numbers because anybody can lie about never missing a quarter and always hitting quota. So they have to go deeper. And what they're really looking for is cultural fit and technical fit. This is like the hard skills and the soft skills. Cultural fit is about grit, humility, curiosity, and how you'll mesh with the team. Technical fit is about whether you'll succeed in their environment with their product at this stage of the company's life. Most sales leaders like to hire ex-collegiate athletes because they're disciplined and competitive. But sometimes you have to dive a little bit deeper to figure out what really drives people. I once hired a BDR who wasn't an ex-college football player. In fact, he was a golfer. And when he told me about his passion for golf, I kind of thought, golf, really? But I was curious, and so I dug a little deeper. I did discovery, and what I learned made me hire him. He told me that in golf, his only competition was himself. That each day, each swing, each course, he's striving to get a little bit better. That mindset of constant incremental improvement is exactly what you want to see in sellers. That's what managers are looking for. They want to see how your character outside of work will affect you inside the job. In the end, he became one of our top BDRs and was quickly promoted. Technical fit is about the hard skills. Think of music. You might have an amazing guitarist who crushes it in garage bands, but they may struggle in a symphony orchestra. The talent's there, but the environment might demand a different set of skills, structure, and tempo. Sales is the same way. Your fit depends on if you thrive in the arena they're playing in. What does that look like? Stage of the company matters. If it's a small startup, they need people who are scrappy, who deal well with obscurity, and who can build structure out of nothing. If it's a large enterprise, they need people who thrive in structured environments with massive playbooks. That is the type of person they need. Another thing that managers look at is product complexity. Do they sell a very simplistic product that doesn't need a lot of implementation, that people who don't have a technical background can easily start selling? That's one side of a technical fit. However, if it's a much more technical product that requires POCs and long implementations, they're going to need salespeople who have more of a technical mind. They're also looking at ideal customer profile conversations. Are you going to daily be talking to the end users about their business, or will you be spending time talking to the C-suite day in and day out? Each of these plays into whether you'll be a good technical fit for the organization. So now that we know what they're looking for, let's talk about prep. There are 5 things that you have to do before you ever step foot into the interview. And number 1 is company research. You have to know their story. Who is their CEO? When were they founded? What's their ideal customer profile? Who are some of their top competitors? If they just had a recent round of funding, you better make sure you know that. You also have to be able to understand the product beyond the marketing jargon. Don't just repeat back to them what you read on the website. I used to ask every single candidate, hey, Explain to me what we do as if you were talking to a non-technical friend or family member. I think it was Einstein who's credited with saying, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. A lot of times you find out beforehand who you're interviewing with from the recruiter, or they'll send out a calendar invite and you'll see the email address of who you're meeting with. Take that information, go onto LinkedIn and learn everything you can about them. Look at what school they went to, university, high school, it doesn't matter. If it's there, look it up. LinkedIn can even show you what type of organizations and charities they're a part of. Look at their career path. Look at any interesting trends or patterns or cool companies they've worked for. You want to look for something that builds a personal connection with them. But here's the key point. You must not use it unless it fits into the conversation naturally. It reminds me of one of my first interviews. I found on LinkedIn that one of them was originally from Belgium and French was his first language. This was a great connection point. I spoke French a little bit in high school and college, and I thought it would build some common ground between us. The problem was, during the whole entire interview, it never came up. And then at the very end, as he was walking out of the room, he handed me his card. I looked at it and I knew this was my moment. I said his last name in a French accent, and we went back and forth on this little exchange in his native tongue, and I know that it was one of the reasons why I was able to land a yes with him. The point here is you have to have something waiting in the back pocket because you never know when someone's going to open that door for you to make that connection. The third is product understanding, and this one's super important and fairly easy to do. A lot of people overlook this, but you have to go beyond the white pages and the marketing that's up on the main website. Most of these companies have a docs website where their customers go and learn about the product, and this is a gold mine for you. It's typically docs.companyname.com. On that site, you'll usually find tutorials, how-tos, and demos. If you can't find those there, go to YouTube and search for demos there. If you can't find demos of that specific company, look up demos of their competitors. The whole point is that you want to see how they demo the product and specifically how they talk about it to their customers. You want to take that same language and you want to adopt it and use it in your interview. Because when you use their language to talk about their product, you signal that you are going to be a fast ramping rep. Not only that, it shows them that you've already studied the product and you're that much further ahead than anyone else who they're actually going to hire. Most sales interviews require some type of role play or mock demo. If this happens, do this pro move. Ask to use their deck and materials and not the thing you're currently selling. This shows them that you're ready to study as if you're already a part of the team, that you want to dive in and do the hard things and accept challenges. I can literally count on one hand the people that have done this with me in my interviews, and they've always been the best candidates. Now, earlier I said that they don't actually look at your numbers. Well, the truth is you still need to know them cold. If you're a BDR, you need to know how many dials you made per day, how many dials turned into connects, connects turned into meetings scheduled, meetings scheduled converted into meetings completed, and meetings completed to sales qualified leads. If you're an AE, you need to know what your quota was, what your attainment to that quota was quarterly and annually. You need to know how well you prospect and convert demos into POCs and POCs into close one. But here's the pro tip. Don't just tell them your numbers, weave them together and show them how you ran deals. Talk about your process and that the reason why you had such a high ratio from POC to close was because of how well you ran demos and how you ran very specific POC scoping calls where you made sure the economic buyer was involved and you reverse timelined the entire implementation. These types of things show them that not only do you know your numbers, but you know your process. They also want to know what types of tools you use and how you use them. So make sure you're including your CRM, your LinkedIn sales nav, and bringing all this together. When you talk about your numbers this way, it gives them a peek into your process and demonstrates maturity. The last part of your prep is make sure that you have built a bank of stories, not just work stories, but personal stories as well. Everyone comes in with how they did this at work or how they did that. But the most impactful stories that I see from candidates is when they share something in their life that shows grit, determination, creativity, and perseverance. You want to be able to talk about that first time you ran a 5K or how you taught yourself guitar. We want to see that you can tell an intriguing story and keep us captivated, but we also want to know not just that you've sold, but that you know how to grow. You also want to make sure that you ask smart and insightful questions about their goals and expectations for this role. I know we've already gone through a lot and you don't have to memorize everything. If this has been helpful but you forgot to take notes, don't worry. I've already created a free companion ebook that goes over all of this material and summarizes it so that you can have it in front of you before your interview. So if you'd like to get your copy, it's in the description. Go click it, download that ebook. I think it'll be really helpful as you go through your interview process. All right, let's continue on. Smart questions examples. First is, what outcomes matter most to you in the next 80 days? You can also say, where do deals usually stall in the pipeline? Another great one is, what does success in this role look like to you, especially in the long term? What challenges are the reps currently experiencing when they're selling this product? Use your questions to show that you're here to show up and contribute to the company, not just to take. Let's talk presence. You want to make sure that you are dressed head to toe, not just from the top up, like you are about to meet with one of their $1 million clients. It doesn't matter if you're on the phone, on a Zoom, or in person. This is so important. I remember getting dressed extremely nicely from head to toe, including socks and shoes, and even shaving just for phone interviews, because it made me feel confident, and that confidence helps your mindset, and it comes across in the call, in the Zoom, and in person. You also want to make sure that if you're doing a Zoom call, you have a clean background, good lighting, and clear audio. You don't need any fancy lights, just make sure that you're standing in front of a window and that you have a nice soft light falling on you. You also want to make sure that you look like somebody ready to meet with their customers. And one of the best ways to figure out what the appropriate attire is to reach out to the hiring manager or the recruiter who's setting it all up and say, hey, what's the expected dress for this interview? That way you make sure you're dressed exactly how they want you to be. Next is mindset. I briefly mentioned it on the last slide, but to me, this is the most important part about the interview. If you don't believe that you are the best candidate for this role, they will not believe that you are the best candidate for this role, and they will find someone else. So you have to show up confident. And one of the best ways to do that is with power poses. Look, this sounds cheesy, but there's a lot of science behind it. Dr. Amy Cuddy has this amazing TED Talk that I've literally watched before all of my interviews. It talks about power poses and how doing stupid power poses like the Superman pose with your hand on your hips or your hands in the air or just smiling completely changes your confidence. It signals to your brain that something is different. They did lots of research and found that people who did the Superman pose and smile big before interviews actually got hired more than the people who did not. Confidence shows up in your interviews, and it's so important that not only do I do the Superman pose before interviews, I've had times where I have gone through multi-hour interviews on site, person after person after person. And I've actually made sure that I take bathroom breaks between the interviews so that I can get in one of the stalls and do the poses, just so that I can refresh it and get back into the mindset to crush the next interview. This is so important. Don't let it slip. Don't make it sound cheesy. You're not too cool for this, because this is something that will actually help you get the job. Next is common questions. Now, this is not going to be an exhaustive list of the common questions. If you want a list of those, go Google it or ask an LLM. This is actually a list of the common questions that I believe are the most important. And here they are. Why sales, why this company, and why now? You want to make sure that you share meaningful, specific answers to why you want to work there. Don't just say, tech sales seems cool. I can't tell you how many times people have told me that in interviews. It doesn't fly. I want to know why you want to work with us. Why are you excited about this role? Tie your why back to their product, their leadership, the product market fit, or your career path. You want to show them that day in and day out, you're going to show up because you have a reason and a passion to be there. If you don't have a good reason for the why, they're not gonna hire you. So make sure you know your why before you go into the interview. Handling challenges is another part of these interviews that comes with the territory. Managers aren't always trying to trip you up with trick questions, but they do want to see how you work under pressure, just like in a real sales call. And so expect questions about deals lost or hardships you've been through. And don't just give cheesy, generic answers. Really think about hard things you've gone through and make sure that when you talk about them, you share about what you learned from the experience and the challenge. Managers want to see growth. They want to see that you learn and iterate on your experiences. And make sure that you never trash companies or past coworkers. This is a complete red flag. Nobody wants to hire someone who's super negative and gonna talk bad about them when they go to the next company. So, if you had a bad experience and you're directly asked about it, be diplomatic, state the facts, and also share what you learned from that experience and how you've been transformed and changed by it, what you took away from it. This shows growth and maturity, and it will help you get hired. Make sure you are ready for role plays. Whether it's cold calls or objection handling, you need to know that they are going to ask you questions just like if you were making a real cold call. But don't worry, managers aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for thinking on the fly. They want to see that you stay calm and ask clarifying questions and continue to drive the conversation forward. Are you able to think under pressure? They also want to see if you're coachable. Let's say you do a bad job and they give you a second chance. Are you going to incorporate what they just taught you? That's a huge signal to them that you're a coachable person that they can help grow. I can't tell you how many reps that are BDRs at other companies have come into interviews not prepared for a role play and completely bombed. Whereas I've had people who have never been BDRs before who are excited about the opportunity, and even though they don't do it perfectly, they learn from it and iterate on it. And that is what you're looking for in these types of role plays. Now, closing the interview matters, but you have to do it in a certain way. Don't just go straight for the kill and say something like, "Hey, based on everything you've seen today, would you hire me?" You put the hiring manager in a very tough spot, because what if they don't want to hire you and they don't feel like they know you well enough to give you honest feedback? So instead of going straight for the close, come at it from the side and tease out any hesitations they have. Say something more like this: "Hey, before we wrap, I just want to see if there's anything that I've said or done that gives you hesitation about hiring me. Just, anything that I could clear up before we leave." Asking something like this mirrors actual sales calls. You always want to surface hidden objections. I personally never want to get off a call with a prospect without knowing all of the hesitations they have. Because if they have hesitations and they're legitimate, and I learn that our product actually can't help meet their need, then I get to disqualify that prospect immediately. I no longer waste their time, they no longer waste mine. However, if I learn that their hesitations are unfounded because I didn't explain the value well enough, I then get to go back and clear that up and help them see why this actually is the best thing for them. It's the exact same thing in your interview. You want to know what those hesitations are so that you can clearly and calmly address them and help them see that you actually are the best rep for this role. And then you always want to follow up. Make sure it is the same day in a recap email, and make sure that it is short, concise, and talks about some next steps. I always like to put in something personal about the call. Maybe they gave you some straight up feedback. Tell them that you're going to take it to heart and that you're really thinking about how you can adjust that. Maybe you had a personal connection, like you spoke French with them. Throw that in there too, but make sure it's short and talks about potential next steps in the interview process. And for a little extra bonus, if you're there in person, go out to your car, write a handwritten note, go back into the office, hand it to the front desk, and make sure it gets back to the person that you interviewed with. This type of touch is never done today. It's hard to do because of the world we live in, but if you have the chance to do it, don't pass it up. It will be something that sets you completely apart. So this is your runbook recap. Before the interview, especially the night before, review all of the things that you've learned, all the research on the company, the people, the product. Print some of it out if you need to. Then you want to make sure that during the interview, you tell compelling personal and work-related stories, that you're curious, you ask good questions with second and third layers, and you want to make sure you close it out, fielding any of those hesitations and looking for next steps. After, you need to make sure that you follow up, connect with them on LinkedIn, and prep for the next call immediately. So if you follow this playbook, you won't just be answering their questions, you'll be running the call like a seller. And that's what you want to make sure you remember, that in every interview, you are the product. They're looking at how you're going to treat their customers. They want to make sure that you prepare, present, and close like a top seller. If you do this, you will stand out from the competition. You will have a much better chance at landing the job. But here's the thing, landing the job is just the first step. If you don't know your why, sales will chew you up and spit you out. It is one of the greatest careers in the world. It's given me freedom, confidence, and the ability to impact others. But without a deep purpose, you won't last. And so, in my next video, I'll show you exactly how to connect with your why and avoid burnout.